Finally, this is an interactive class. You may be asked to answer a few pop-up questions during the lecture. Please pay attention to what's going on right now. Thanks for your cooperation. Now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the lecture. Good afternoon. It's glad to see you. So, being a boring young adult, most of the time, you start to, every time when you do web surfing, you have some other hobby instead of just looking for something fun. So in the past, well, you are thinking about oh, I want to save as much money as possible after I retire. So you start to look at stock market, you start to look at the news. But right now, I think the only thing I care about is probably how many cases are there in Riverside, and is it slowing down? And can I get back to my normal life? Can I even get a chance to see you guys? But if you look at the trend that we are having right now, it looks like Riverside is right now the second. Well, in terms of the number of cases, we are ranked just at a second, which most of the time you want to be the second in California. Well, in a lot of things, I hope Riverside could be the only school after UCLA in UC system, right? But right now, apparently, we are second to UCLA, well, second to Los Angeles for the number of cases, which is not great, and which is pretty sad at this point. I don't see a chance that I can get a chance to see you. And if you look at the recent trend, it turns out that it's coming. If you look at the Los Angeles, right? The Los Angeles. It used to be slowing down at this point, but yesterday it increased a lot. So if you are thinking about going outside, hanging out with your friend, I would suggest you to not doing that, because it's not only protecting yourself, also protecting others. And as long as we can be patient, we can control ourselves, we can get out earlier. Right, so don't be like those guys in Florida. They try to, be on the beach, and hopefully, well, pray for them. That's the only thing I can say, right? But other than that, right, for people, we are still in California, even though the restriction may be loosened at some point, but make sure that you still control yourself in a certain way. Social distancing is very important. We don't want the pandemic to come back again. So it's something that, well, I know you guys are good. So if you have a friend trying to say, well, hang out with us, right? And please say no. Please say no, right? So that's the only way we can all get out sooner. Especially, I know it's sunny outside. I really, and because we ran a lot in the past month, so there must be a lot of blooming flower right outside. So I really want to see that, right? But if people don't do that, then it's really hard. Okay, so Fang Zong, question?
Yes, Professor. I'm looking at the class schedule on the class website, and I found that the lab I found that there's no lab due this week.
No,
right?
there is no lab due this week. You are right, because it's due next week. And
So,
I know this lab is more complicated, so I give you guys more time.
right. Okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so except for that, I think we can get started. So last week we talked about, we have a recap back on number system, and some question you probably never thought about why we settle with 2's complement rather than other representation of numbers. And turns out it's just because we want to have a number system that fulfill all the requirements, like it has obvious representation of 0, 1, 2. It has efficient usage of number space. It has almost equal coverage for positive and negative numbers, and it has very easy hardware design. Right, so that's the reason why we talk about. That's the reason why we use 2's complement things long time ago. And here's the reason, and that's the why. Right, so after knowing that, right, we know that 2's complement is also good in a way that it simplifies the hardware design. So if you just want to support subtraction, it basically means that you just add a negative number to its corresponding positive number representation. And doing that is actually not that hard. You just need to provide an option to bitwise not B, which give you the 1's complement, and provide an option to add 1 to the input of the half adder. And that's how we get 2's complement, right? And then you only need to do the small things, and you can support adding. So this is how we come up with the adder. So we have an input tells you if it's negative number, and if it's negative number, it's definitely the 1 carry in. And then you chant all the adders together as many bits as you want. However, this also comes to the issue that if you look at the efficiency of this adder, it's actually not that great in a way that, well, so first of all, right, in terms of a space, well, it takes about 1600, but the bigger of the issue is in a delay, right? So if you look at the delay of this circuit, like how much time it takes for us to receive the most the final result, it actually turns out that there is a chain of the carry, right? So in the very beginning, we can only get those A bits, B bits. However, for those carry, we can only have C0 in the very beginning, which is your input of is negative or not. But for others, they all need to depend on the output of another adder. So it turns out if you want to receive the final output, you have to wait for the carry to propagate until the very, very last carry out. So it turns out you will feel like it's like a ripple, right? So I draw this so you feel like it's a ripple, right? Like throwing a stone into a lake. Not sure how many of you still have this kind of memory during your childhood. Apparently, I don't have, so I can only imagine, right? But in case this is the ripple I draw, I imagine this is like that, right? So that's why it's called carry ripple adder. Right, so this is carry ripple adder. So you have to wait until the wave reaches the very, very end. And turns out that if you have 32 bits, you have to wait for 64 gates. So that's not efficient. And you know, like in the era that we really want efficiency. So we have to talk about how we design a more efficient adder. And we are going to talk about more elements that you may be used for the future hardware design, including like adder, like multiplexer, multiplier, and maybe divisor. So these are, well, actually, I think I have one more thing to talk about. But anyway, well, so this is what we are going to talk about today. So the other type of adder that we are going to talk about is called carry-lookahead adder. So previously we talked about the repo carry adder, right? However, the issue of repo carry adder is that we cannot get all the carries in the very beginning, so we have to wait. So, but can we use some logic to quickly pre-compute the carry for each digit? Can we quickly do that? So if you look at that, right, you will see there are cases that you can learn from the truth table of a full adder. So first of all, if you have both A, B's are 0, there's definitely no carry. And if your A, B's are all 1, you must have carry. So these are two categories we know for sure we are going to have carry or not in the very beginning, because A's and B's, they are ready in the very beginning. So these two type of cases we can handle. But how about the middle ones? So the middle ones, you need to wait for a C in. So it means that you still have to propagate, right? So this is the basic idea of carry-lookahead logic. So for both, so you will have a case like, do we need to propagate, right? So that's P. And you also have a case that we know there is going to be a, a carry that's called generate, right? But for those no carry, you just don't need to let the logic know everything, right? So now the only thing you need to know is that how can we generate, or how can we produce the final C out when there are bits belongs to the case of propagate, right? So this is how the design of the carry-lookahead logic, carry-lookahead logic will look like. So first of all the generate and the propagate, they are immediately available just by look at your AI and BI, but C's are not, except for C0, right? But is that is that's what it seems to be, right? But if you dive into the detail, right, the generate bit itself, the GI, the 00 itself is AI BI. But if you look at the PI, the PI is actually AI exclusive or B, right? You know if we need to propagate. And these are the two things that we can have in the very beginning, right? These are the two things that we can have in the very beginning, right? And then if you look at about like how we get the CI, a C1, right? The C1 is actually the G0 or P0, C0, right? So if your P is propagating something, and if your carry is 0, if your carry is 1, and there's going to be a chance that you are going to have a carry, right? So this is what it looks like, right? And if you look at C2, it's actually G1 plus P1 C1. If you look at P, and if you expand it, it's actually G1 plus P1 and G0 plus P0 C0, right? You can put this inside, right? So you might be able to guess right now, how do we get C3? It's again G2 plus P2 C2, and it will be equal to this thing, and C4 will be equal to this thing, and if you expand it, that's what it is, right? And remember, all the GIs, PIs, they could be generated in the very, very beginning. So if you know this, right, all the CIs, as you can see, right, can end up with in a form that you only need GI and PI, right? You don't need anything. You don't need any CI from others, right? Except for C0, which you know in the very beginning, right? So in this way, being honest, what you can see is that all the carries could be generated just by giving the very initial outputs. It could be pre-generated. So that's carry-lookahead, right? By looking at the initial output, input, you can actually generate the carries in the meantime as well, So right now, my question is that, given you know this is the carry-lookahead logic, how many gate delays are we going to suffer? All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so let's share the results. So, well, 31% of you think it's A, 31% of you think it's B, 19% think it's C, and 17% think it's B, and 2% think it's E. So it looks like there's no consensus here right now. So, but it's really a good time that we need some of you to express your idea and why do you advocate for your answer. Okay, so I already have Fan Zong try to let us know what you think. So why don't you tell us?
I think the answer is A, 2 gate
Uh-huh,
delays, because
uh-huh.
because in reality we only need to know what the last carry out is. So if we look at C4, it equals to the OR of a, a bunch of AND gates. So there are really two sets of gates. The first layer is a bunch of AND gates, and the second layer is the OR gate. So there's only two.
Okay. So Chi, do you want to say something as well?
Actually, I have the same answer as the.
Okay. So Michael,
Oh,
Fox.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you okay? I haven't seen you for a week. I miss you a lot.
Yeah, I've been sick.
Oh,
you
really? What
can,
kind of sick?
actually, my medication ran out. My SSRIs. I was on
Okay. So
antidepressants.
yeah, just make sure that you are staying safe. All right.
Yeah.
So
I put
what do you
C.
think?
I
You
put
put
C.
C. Okay.
I
Why?
put C. So I wanted to count the gate delays. Obviously, the longest gate delay is going to be on C4. So I just counted the gate delay propagations with the basic gate being a 2-input gate. And
okay.
to
So you are
calculate
consider everything as a 2-input gate, right?
2-input
But
gates.
but in our well, so from the lecture that you missed last week, in the textbook it actually says that you can consider we have 4-input gates, we can have like whatever input gate, and they count as 1 gate delay. Is that going to change what you think?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So Stephanie, what do you think? You're unmuted. Stephanie, you are unmuted. Can you unmute yourself?
Sure.
Otherwise,
you get me?
Yeah.
Hello? I think the answer should be number
Stephen.
D. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, I think the answer should be number D.
Number
D? Yeah.
D.
Yeah.
So you think there are 8, but why do you think it's 8?
I think it's 8 because normally the gate delay is the critical path.
Okay. So let's look at okay, so let me explain what's going on here, right? So I mean, first of all, every one of you would agree C4 is the most problematic one, right? So, but if you look at what we learned from the last week, right? If you want to generate C4, what you actually need is that you need a few inputs like, okay, we have G3, we have P3, we have G2, well, wow, we have quite a lot. Okay, let me find a way to write them down. Right, so we have G3, we have P3, we have G2, we have P3, we have P2, we have G1. Well, this kind of stuff, right? But all you can do is that, like for the GC, it's directly an input that goes to an OR, right? And for P3 and G2, it's actually an AND gate goes in this way. And for P3, P2, and G1, right, it's actually like this. So, a lot of things, they can be done in parallel. So it turns out, even though, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you guys have the critical one, but even if you look at the last one, like P3, P2, P1, P0, it all goes to this gate and C0, right? It all goes to this gate, and finally, it's done in parallel, so only 2 gate delays for a 4-bit.
Wait, what about the gate delay to compute G and P?
So that's one thing that's missing in, so that's what I'm saying about what the textbook is not doing. So, okay. So you are saying about the gate delay of calculating the PNG, right? But so the question is actually, okay, so we were talking about the delay inside the carry-lookahead logic, right? So that's why in this answer, P and G are not calculated, because if you look at the carry-lookahead logic, the P and G, they are already the input of this logic. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does.
Okay, all right. So that's the reason why you only need to look at this. Okay, so Stefan, question?
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Professor, I think the critical part is number A, right? But we have 4 bit. It's not 2 times and 4 times 2. That gives 8 gate delay.
No, you cannot calculate it in this way, right? So this 4-bit CLA is it's the 4-bit CLA is the whole thing, right? It's the It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing here. It's the whole thing here. This 4-bit COA is the whole thing here. So you can assume everything is ready at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. And it generates this C out after 2 gate delays. So that's what we are trying to talk about. Okay, so Giovanni, how can I help you?
Hello.
Yeah.
Wondering if you could repeat that gate delay poll one more time.
Okay, so the gate delay, we are counting after we receive the GI and PI, right? And if you look at the gate delay, right? If you were in class last week, we talked about how to calculate the gate delay. Is that if you draw the graph like this, right? So this is C4, right? And this is the final product of C4, right? And this is G3. So it ends up with a multi-input OR gate like this here. And each of the input like G3, that goes direct. So this is not a critical path, right? But even if the last one, the P3, P2, P1, C0, right? It ends up with a multi-input AND gate and goes to the OR and goes to the output. So that's 2 gates. Is that clear? You mute yourself.
Yeah.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I get it now. Thank you.
Okay. So I believe we have a consensus right now. It's the answer for this question is going to be 2, right? So you know in comparing with generating 4-bit using a gate delay, right? COA is a lot better, right? So right now I'm encouraging you to look at the size of the carry look ahead adder. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so here we go. Wow. So A, B, they are both popular answers, but they are really close. For A, 29% of you. For B, 31% of you. And C, D, they are all popular. It means that we really need a whole classroom discussion to help us figure out what's going on there. So I need some volunteer to tell me, what do you think? Okay, so I have Chi.
Hello, Professor. I choose A.
You chose A. Okay, why did you do that?
Because when I want to calculate the implementation of the 4-bit CLA, I only need to compute the C4. Is that correct?
Well, so that's not exactly right? Because we are talking about a whole CLA, right?
Oh, so I need to like compute the C1, C2, and C3, C4, and then add them together?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think, I need to
Okay, so in this way, what do you guys think now? Does that change your mind?
Yes. So
Okay, then do you? Okay, so I have funds only. Okay.
I have a question.
So
Why do we need to calculate all 4 CLs? Doesn't make sense. I think we only need to calculate the C4. No?
Okay, look at this. P3, P3.
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, I think we have to calculate all of them because we need the sum too, right? Not just the CLs.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, you still need the output of C1, C2, C3. Otherwise, your adders cannot get the right result.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay. I have a new name. Tyler.
Hi, hello. I finally figured
Hi.
out how to get into the discussion, or not discussion, lectures from YouTube. So,
Okay.
my math is leading me to believe that the answer is C. Yeah, so if we go to the final result of like the summation of all the terms from C4, each G is 4 transistors, assuming it's the 2 per input, since G is originally like an AND. So like all the G's would result in 16 transistors. And P is also another 4 transistor gate because it's either or. So then, so looking at the final summation, the G3 by itself is like essentially a output wire. So there's no additional transistors coming from that for the final result. We then have 4 transistors in the next term, and it's like 6, 10. So adding those up would get 28 transistors. And then for the final transistor, or not transistor, or for the final set of transistors, it's the OR of all of those. There's 5 terms, that's another 10. Yeah, and my math keeps getting 94. I think I'm missing like I'm adding like a transistor extra somewhere, but it's always around 92. So
Okay, so first of all, I think I need to correct my result a little bit because if you look at the design of the Carry-lookahead unit, right, then you will figure out that those P0, P1, they don't believe, they don't belong to the unit itself, right? So look at the question that I put here. I'm actually about asking the logic only. So then, although I put the number of this two, shoot. Okay, so although I put the number of this two logic here, however, they don't actually belong to the carry lookahead adder. The carry lookahead logic itself. It's from the adder, right? So that part we shouldn't count, right? So but let's look at this. So for this C1 input, right? So the G itself doesn't need a gate. Well, no, the G itself is an input, so it doesn't need a gate.
Oh,
right?
wait, I realized
and
one of my mistakes.
Yeah, the G itself is just an input. It doesn't need a gate. And for P0, C0, it's a two input and you need a two input OR. So that's why it's 8, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing here for this final logic. The G1 itself is an input, and you need a 3 input. You need a 3 input AND at the end, and that's 6 gates, right? And this is a 3 input AND, so another 6 gates. This is a 2 input OR, so it's 4, right? So then that's A plus 16. And for here, similarly, this G2 itself doesn't need a gate because it's a value that's the input, right? And for the let me see, for this final result, it's an OR with 4 inputs, right? So that's why it's 8 here. And this one is a 4 input AND, so it's 8 and it's 8. And this one is a 3 input, so it's 6. And this one is a 2 input, so it's 26, right? And for this part, right, if you do a similar math, you will figure out it's 38, right? So then if we add up the whole thing together, that's going to be, let me see, 24 plus 26. That's 50. So the answer, okay, so the closest answer will be 92, but the real answer is going to be 88 in this way. Make sense?
Yeah, like, I mean, the C was what I picked, yeah. But...
Okay, so that's the closest answer, but you know, sometimes I should put an F, none of the above, right? Because this kind of calculation is hard. But the right answer, I will update it later. It should be 88. All right. So right now, if you look at that, right, the CLA, the carry lookahead adder versus repo carry repo, right? If you compare it, well, so for the carry lookahead adder, if I want to build a 32-bit one, I need 8 of this 4-bit adder. And it requires, I would say, like, if the whole adder itself is like the whole adder, right? Even though we have done some math, then it's going to be close to these numbers, right? It's going to be it's not precise anyway, but we are going to get a number that is close to 2,000 transistors. But if you count a 32-bit carry repo, is only about like 1,600 transistors. So if you compare the size, right, and in hardware company, every transistor count, every transistor is a penny, right? So it turns out that if you want to save the cost, then carry lookahead adder is not going to be a win, but you probably want to prefer the carry repo adder if that's the only thing that you care about. However, if you look at the delay, the 32-bit carry lookahead adder with 8 4-bit carry lookahead adders, it only generates 2 gate delay per for the whole thing. So it turns out that you need a total of 16 delays. And initially, we need some time to generate the A exclusive or B as the input, but that part also only take about like 1 delay. So 1 gate delay. So it's about like 16 to 20 delays that I would say. But for the 32-bit ones, you definitely have to spend 64 gates delay, which is a huge loss comparing with the carry repo adder, right? So this case demonstrates a very good trade-off that we usually would see in hardware design, is that Sometimes we would want to build a big chip because the bigger chip using a more complex logic can actually minimize the delay. So, however, it's more expensive. So that's what we call by area delay trade-off. And that's the trade-off that you find out in the textbook. And the textbook has some kind of very vague definition about how do you gauge which trade-off. And yeah, but I didn't teach that here because I think the trade-off is all case by case. So sometimes if you really want to lower the cost, then area is the only thing you care about. But sometimes if the cost is not even an issue, and that's one of the reasons why Moore's law can help us to improve chip performance in the past, because in the past Moore's law basically tells you that we are able to offer twice more transistors within the same area. So and it means that, well, you don't need to pay more and you can get more transistors. So in the past, we leveraged that. So we can implement more complex logic to make our chip faster. It's not necessarily because, just because the Moore's law improved the wire delay, but it's more about, well, with this additional logic, we can actually make the performance even better. So that's another reason why Moore's law was so important in the past in helping us getting performance, right? And it's also a reflection of the area delay trade-off that we have, right? So this is an example that shows you that, well, if we want to reduce the latency, most of the time you think, you can, you want to simplify your logic as much as possible, but this is actually giving you a very contradiction way to think about this. We can make the logic more complex, but make our delay shorter because we try to do a lot of computation in parallel and help us to shrink the critical path in the circuit. We will talk about that later more, but this is the thing you have to keep in mind. Sometimes more transistors doesn't mean it's worse, but in fact, the reason why we use more transistors to build logic with the same functionality is because we want to minimize the delay. Okay, so that's about different adder design. So look at this. This is the question that we have in the last week. If we want to support subtraction, and so far I still didn't talk about how the subtraction needs to be done in the adder. I just tell you that we can make the adder better. So we are kind of like detour on that, right? So and from what we learned so far, it's not possible for us to support both in the same adder. So let's look at this. How can we provide this option, and how can we how can we supply the add one to the input? Right, so how do we provide not or not, right? So that's what we are going to talk about. And the answer is that we need a multiplexer. And most of the time, we call it MUX, MUX. So in multiplexer, we use this kind of way of describing the functionality of the MUX as end-to-end MUX means that a MUX with n inputs and outputs. So if I say that I wanted to design a 4-to-1 MUX, it means that it's a MUX with 4 inputs and outputs. And if you ever pay attention to your lab, and if you did spend time in doing your lab, you must already know what MUX is. And today we are going to talk about MUX in more detail. So the MUX itself is that we want to, there are cases that we have many choices, right? And you just need one at a time, right? So, and one of the good example is that, like if you have a car, right? You know that the odometer, you can press a button and it will tell you sometimes it's the total trip, sometimes is the single trip, and sometimes it tells you the temperature, right? So how do you do that? It's basically a MUX, and you press one button, it changes the option for you to select from multiple different inputs. So that's one of the potential usage of multiplexer, right? And recently, if you are at home like me and you have multiple computers, but if you only have one monitor, right, you also need a MUX that you select multiple HDMI inputs. Sometimes it's probably from your switch because you are playing some funny game, and sometimes it's probably from your laptop computer. Sometimes it's just a TV, right? So you need a MUX everywhere, right? So so if you really want to support the adder, to support two functions for the adder and give it two different types of input, right? What you need is actually a MUX, right? So this gives you an example, right? So if I just want to choose from B or B not, then I just need a MUX. And there's an input tell me if I should choose B, the original B or the complemented B, right? So that's what you need, right? So we need a MUX to support that feature. So the simplest kind of MUX is actually a 2-to-1 MUX. So the MUX has two inputs, numbered as 0 and 1, and to select from two inputs, right? Because you have two inputs, so the input can be labeled as 0 or 1. So you just need one bit control select signal to indicate the desired input port. So if you write a truth table, right? If you write a truth table of the MUX, it will become, okay, if right now my input is selected 0, then my output would be whatever A is, because A is connected to 0, right? It should be connected to, it should output whatever A is, ignoring what value in B. And the same thing, if I am selecting 1, then it means that whatever B is giving me, I output it. However, I should ignore everything about A, right? So that's the truth table. So the truth table is easy to generate. And we know this, we have learned K-map. So you convert the truth table to K-map, right? And the K-map would actually tells you that, well, the circuit itself is just A select not and B select, all right? So that's the logic we are going to generate. So given this is the output. This is the Boolean equation for the output. And you already know that, for this A select, we need an AND gate. For this, we need a an AND gate, and then finally OR their result together. So that's how we get the final MUX, right? We are done. We are done. You know how to design a 2-to-1 MUX now, right? By using K-map, right? So this is the logic of the MUX. So that's probably something, the very basic usage of MUX. And that's what you, but you can actually use MUX for more interesting things. So why don't we look at this question and tell me about what do you think about MUX now? All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. Time is up. Okay, so right now, let me see what you guys think. Okay, so we have two very popular answers, C or D. So can I have someone explain what do you think? Okay, I have Chi.
Hi, Professor. I choose D.
Okay, you chose D, but why?
Because when I see the A MUX, I write down the expression as because when A is equals to 1, that means like you only need to see what the input of the C. So that's AC plus and A prime that you only need to see the 0, which is 1. So you only multiply the A.
Right?
Yes,
okay.
yes. So that's why you get A prime plus AC. And then when I see the B MUX, when B is 1, that means we only need to see the C prime's outcome. So that's why the BC prime. And because when B prime, that means a 0. So we need to see the 1A prime plus CA. So that's why I get D.
Okay. So another thing, right. So that's why D is the right answer, right? So another thing to think about, right, is that for each MUX, right, we say for the MUX is basically A select not plus B select, right? So for the first one, right, the select is now replaced by A, right? So that's why it comes with this format. And then this becomes the input of this MUX, and you replace everything, it becomes that. And some of you might think it's C because you think we can simplify the logic like that, but it's actually not possible, right? So that's why the question for the answer for this one would be D. All right. So right now we have seen a more usage of the MUX, right? It's not just like you could select from between two things, but if you chain them together, they can actually be more useful. So that's why you see MUX a lot in the logic design. And sometimes, even though you write your own Verilog, you don't know what's going on there. But if you are interested, you can look at the schematic generated by your Xilinx tool. You will see like there are MUXes there to implement this kind of logic. So that's why cascading MUXes is a very important thing to look at. Okay, so this is your lab, right? So if you want to do a 4-to-1 MUX, right, then it turns out that you can keep expanding the function, and you will figure out that your output is first of all, you need 2 different lines to select between 4 different inputs, right? So that's why you have S0, S1, right? And if you keep expanding the function, try to draw a truth table, then you will figure out this is your output function. And turns out that given this output function, this is the 4-to-1 MUX that you will have as your schematic, right? So this is a 4-to-1 MUX. So and to symbolize it, we in the rest of the class, we don't want to spend time drawing this the figure on the left hand side. So we will use the small box of like 4-to-1 MUX with 4 different inputs and a select signal and also an output to replace the MUX. Okay, so right now you have seen 2-to-1 MUX, you have seen 4-to-1 MUX, and can you imagine what's the estimated gate delay of an 8-to-1 MUX? All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so right now the most popular answer is B. So can I have some of you tell me why? Tell me why. Okay, I think Chi, you answered last time, so I will keep you a hold. Tyler, what do you think?
Hello. Okay. It would be B because you would have 8 AND gates, one for each of the inputs, so like IO to I7, and you'd also have the 3 S's, each like set based on what that current I is. So like I0 would be like S0 not, S1 not, and S2 not. And
right. So as you mentioned, right, this is the final logic that we will draw, right? So the gate delay is still 2 because we need to, the critical path goes through this thing. And even though it seems like it's wider, we have more logic. However, they are all in parallel, right? So that's the thing, right? So, and another hint is that, right? So if you look at the 2 to 1 MUX, right? It's like this, right? So we have 2 gate delays, right? For the 2 to 1 MUX, right? But if you look at the 4 to 1 MUX that we just drew, the 4 to 1 MUX is basically the 4 to 1 MUX is also the same in a way that you only need to pass through this too, right? So using an analogy, you can easily imagine, okay, this is our A to 1 MUX would look like. So although the calculation, the gate delay calculation on the textbook is not really very exact, very precise. However, it gives you an idea that, well, if you keep expanding your MUX, the estimated additional gate delay is somehow not that significant in a certain way that, well, although I think this is not true if you go to a very crazy large MUX. However, if you didn't if you have like a controllable number of the inputs, and you just want to use the MUX to select them, the gate delay is not going to be increasing significantly. It's always about the same level, right? Which makes MUX a really good way for you to parallelize your logic and minimize your delay. So that's why we were talking about the cascading MUX case, because if you find a way that you can use MUX to implement your logic, it also means that you can parallelize a lot of stuff and make to optimize of your delay. But apparently, you see there are so many gates here in parallel, so the size may not be optimized. But as we mentioned, right, there are cases that we want to trade the size because we want efficiency, and MUX is a way that you can think about using. So that's just one MUX, right? But sometimes, what if we need to output an n-bit number from the input set? Then all you need to do is that you just need to have multiple MUX in parallel. You have one control signal saying that which bit I want to select from this number, and saying that if you have 4 bits, you just need 4. And for each of the MUX, you just fit them the corresponding bit into the input like this, right? So that's how you get an n-bit MUX. So I decided that I want to play this animation a little bit one more time because, you know, being a professor, I spend a lot of time drawing this animation at home. Well, that's the only thing I can do during this social distancing period. So I really wanted to see it one more time, right? So you have 4 different MUXes. It controls an output of a bit, and you use a single control signal that connects all to all the MUX. And for every number, you connect it to the corresponding input of the MUX, like this, and finally, depending on what's your input value, you select that. right? So that's the basic idea of n-bit MUX. Okay, so right now, one question I want to ask you is about the size. We were talking about the size. So how big is the 4-bit 4 to 1? Okay, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay, so from what I can learn from you, looks like B is the most popular answer. So why can I have someone explain your reason? Okay, so I have Fonzo Lee.
Hello. I actually didn't choose B. I chose
Okay,
D.
what did you choose?
D.
Okay, hold on. Just be online. Don't mute yourself. I still need you.
All right.
Okay, Stephen, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's D.
You think it's D? Okay. Chi, what do you think?
I think it's B.
You think it's B? Okay, you come first. Why do you think it's B?
Because I see the expression of the 4 times 1 MUX, and because each bit is 4, so
okay, so for 4-bit MUX, right? You, if I remember correctly, you probably need this and you need this, right?
Yes.
Right. And how many inputs do we need here?
For each AND gate, we need 3.
Okay, 3. Okay, then how much is that? How many is that?
24.
Okay, so
16.
Okay, keep going.
So the total input is 16.
16. Why is 16?
1, 2, 3, 6.
It's 24.
So how many of each? How many of each? So Stefan, you say it's 24, but why is 24?
I think it's 24 because we have 3 input. One input has 2 transistors. It becomes 2 times.
Right, so this is 6, right? So you have 24 here, right?
Yeah.
And how about this guy?
This one is 2 times 4.
4. So 8, right? So Fangzong, is that what you think?
Yeah. And we need
okay,
4 of those.
so yeah, you have 4 of those. Okay, thank you guys. And for Chi, do you figure out what goes wrong here?
Oh,
Are you still wrong?
yeah.
Okay, so you know what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you agree that the answer is not B, but D?
I become not sure about this time.
Okay, so you look at that, right? If you look at that, right? This is the 4-to-1 MUX, right? So for 4-to-1 MUX, each of the AND gate, it has 3 different inputs, right? And if it's a 3-input MUX, then you would have 6 transistors, right? And at the end, you want a 4-input gate. So that's 8 transistors, right? So it turns out that it's 32 each one. And because it's a 4-bit, so you need 4 in total, right? So that's how you end up with the answer of 128. Get it?
Yes, I get it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess we are now knowing that, okay, here is the thing about 4-to-1 MUX. And let's look at an application of MUX that's called shifters. So shift is a very frequently used operation in programming. So I know you guys claim yourself are the best programmer, and many of you are from the CS department. So why don't you demonstrate, show me you are a really good programmer by let me know what you think the answer is. All right, let's wrap up in 15 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. Okay. So, according to the poll, more than half of you think the answer is C. So can I have some of you explaining that? You guys are the top-notch programmer, right? Tell me the answer. Is that really hard? Okay. So Chi, what do you think?
I only know that the third one is correct.
You think the third one is correct? Okay, hold
Yeah.
on. Fox, what do you think?
All right, I think the answer is C.
You think the answer is C? Which
I think
and
the answer
which?
is C. Huh?
Okay, so which and which?
Oh, which and which? It's going to be 2 and 3 are the correct
2 and
ones.
3. Okay, you think 2 and 3. Okay, so let me run the program. So this is the program I wrote, right? Exactly. I have an unsigned character here. I have C equal to 3, C equal to 225, 256, 128, right? So this is exactly the same example that is given, right? So right now, I just delete everything I compiled, and then I recompile it again so you know that I'm not cheating, right? And let me run it. Okay, what did you guys see? 0, 252, 0, 0, right? Go back. Is that what you get?
Wait.
Only the second.
Wait, what's going on, right? Where's your self-ego being a C programmer, being a programmer in computer science? Okay, Tyler, what do you think?
Oh,
I was being a bit iffy about it, like between B and C, because
Okay.
I actually am not familiar with C itself. But like I had a suspicion it was B, because 256, if we were to use that number, that would be 9 bits. But since you can't have that in 8-bit, it's in a carry digit.
My screen was blurry. I misread 256 as 255. If I thought,
no, that's not a reason. That's not a good reason, right? I already chose the font that makes 6 and.
I'm on a phone on LTE, and your screen share is blurry.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
So,
okay. Oh,
yeah, I'm
terrible.
not on my computer right now, so I did not see that as 256.
Okay, I accept that, right? But right now, like I just show you the result, right? 1, 3, 4, they are all zeros, right? They are all zeros, right? And the reason why is that if you so for the first one, right? The 3 is actually 1, 0, 0. 101, right? So if you shift right by 2, then is what is 3? 3 is 1. Oh, 0, 1, 1, right? 3 is 0, 1, 1, right? So if you shift right by 2, it just cancel out all the ones, right? If it's 255, it's all ones. However, because you shift it right, well, you shift it left by 2, so it's just adding 2 zeros at the end. However, the leading 2, they are gone. So that's why you get 252. That's the only correct one, right? But for 256, well, it actually used 9 bits. So if you assign it to a character, you only capture the last 8 digit, right? So it turns out that you've got all zeros, and no matter how you shift it, it's going to be 0. And 128, it falls in the case that only the leading, the most significant bit is 1, but the rest of them are 0. So if you shift it left by 1, then it becomes all 0. Okay, so after, well, I heard you guys have a lot of excuse about, like, I'm not familiar with C, but there are tons of things that you have to learn about programming by knowing what the underlying hardware is doing for you. And well, in the next lecture, we will have more of this kind of example. And I think it's common no matter what kind of language you are using. But right now, let's just look at the case of shift. So right now, I believe we have a consensus of shift, right? So what a shift is actually most of the programming language, when we talk about shift, it falls into the category of logic shifter. It shifts the value left and right and fill the empty space with zeros. And there are also arithmetic shifters. So if you do this in Verilog, it's actually giving you a logic shifter which would rotate the most significant bit or the least significant bit, right? And it's going to same as logic, but on the right shift, it fills the empty space with the old most significant bit. So in this way, it keeps the sign, right? So it won't. So I would say it's a logic sign shifter, ignoring the most significant bit. And the rotator is actually rotating the last bit um, to the end or to the most significant bit. So these are the shifters, right? So if I want to design a shift right? See my animation again, right? It's plenty, right? So for the shift right, the input you want is saying that if I have 4 bits input, right? You can shift at most 4 bits or say 3 bits in the number. So you need 2 different bits for the shift amount, right? So if the shift amount is 1, then the most significant bit, like Y3, would become 0, and everyone will go to shift right by 1. So Y2 becomes A3, Y1 becomes A2, Y0 becomes A1. And if you have 1, 0, meaning that I'm shifting it by 2, then the most significant bit, 2 bits will be 0 and A3, A2, right? If you are shifting it by 3, then it becomes only A3, right? So, and as you can imagine, it looks like very complex, but if you use MUX, right, and you use shift amount as the input of MUX, all you need to do is select when S equal, so the only chance that you will have to use A0 is whenever we don't shift, right? And other than that, the only chance you are going to have you have A3 only is the case you have 1 1, right? So given this way, right? This is how you could draw your output like, right? So this is so the only case you will have A3 is when I am not moving anything, right? So this is how you can draw your output and fitting them to the right place, right? Like when I am shifting 2, then only A3 and A2 are used. So that's why you get it here. And if I'm shifting 1, A3, A2, A1, right? So that's why you get this 3 here, right? So all you need to do to implement the shift logic is using MUX. And as we learned, this is only 2 gate delays, right? So if you want to shift right, and it just gives you 2 gate delays, right? And it also means that if I want to divide a number by 2, by 4, or by 8, I can just use the shift right to do it, right? So that's one of the application of MUX. All right, so there are still quite a few stuff I want to talk about, but let's give it a pause here. So we have announcement to do 2 days later. We have reading quiz 5 due next Tuesday before the lecture. I will put the question tonight, and some of you already asked in the very beginning. There is no lab due this week, however, next week. Right, and again, watch the video, read the instruction, and we know this lab is more complex, so that's why we give you more time, and that's why we get the basic stuff done as early as possible, so that later on we are going to maintain a schedule that you are going to have labs due like almost like every 2 weeks. So you are happy, and I know this is a different pace as other classes, because many other classes, they tend to have a pretty relaxed schedule in the very beginning, however, very busy schedule at the end. But I know if everybody does that, then you will be burned out at the very end. So that's why we get the first 2 lab due very quick. We get the reading quiz due very quick. However, it also makes your life better. And the other thing, the most important thing, we will have midterm on May 7th. And it's during the lecture time, access through iLearn. And we want to make sure that everybody is taking this midterm at that time. So make sure you can stay at home at a place in front of a computer with stable network to take the midterm. I don't want to see any excuse saying that because I don't have good internet connection, because I'm not even at home at that time. No, that's never a reason, because when you take this class, although it's online, but it means that you have to be there at the time. So make sure you are free on that day during the lecture time to take the midterm. Other than that, I will meet you in 2 days.
Professor, real quick.
Okay.
What's the midterm going to cover? What chapters?
Well, I will talk. It depends on. So it depends on where we are at. But if you can check the schedule in the class web on the class web page, everything we taught before the midterm.
Okay, for sure. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Other than that, okay, Chen Yue.
So do we for the midterm, it's all about the multiple choice?
Okay, I will talk about that later, right? But you got one thing right, because it's an online, so we will have tons of multiple choice questions, tens of them, right? So make sure that you are busy enough during the midterm to not discussing with your friends. All right.
Okay.